Hello and welcome to episode 15 in my series 100 Casts, in which I'll be casting over 100 games of League of Legends sent in to me by viewers and friends for the purpose of practicing my shoutcasting ability. If you'd like to have your replay featured in the series, look in the description. There's instructions there on how to do that. Hope you enjoy it. Thanks for watching. Alright, let's get into this one then. This match is a little bit higher level than the previous few have been. I believe it's around Diamond 3 level, actually, and the replay was sent in to me by a fellow YouTuber, his name being Yace is Coming, though I believe he's going on by an alt name in this match, Wasili the Riven. He plays essentially only Riven, so you can always tell who he's going to be in the game by simply seeing which one of the summoners is playing Riven, which is Wasili right now. Getting down to the comps, though, on the side of blue team, we have a Morgana and Tristana in the bot lane, quite a long-range duo there. Lots of poke going to be going down in that lane for blue team, as I am interrupted by the blue team invading onto the purple team. The Lee Sin following up on his Q there perhaps has a bit of Lee syndrome, since there were a lot more blue team members than purple team members around, and he went real deep into their team with that second activation of Sonic Wave, and died for his trouble. That's going to be a 400 gold lead for blue team now, as many members of blue team did get assists onto that first blood, the Lee Sin going down just before 1 minute into this game. Anyways, back to the comp. Hopefully I won't get interrupted by yet another invade. That seems unlikely. We have the enemy bot lane, or enemy as far as blue team is concerned, bot lane in the Ezreal and the Syndra, which I wanted to highlight because that is an interesting support pick. Syndra does have quite a long-range stun, as well as a knockback, which is what procs the stun, really. So she does have some decent ability to support there, and also Syndra's base damage on her ulti, as well as the long-range and spammy nature of her poke in Q, all lend her a sort of ability to play support. She's certainly not one of the best supports, and I would not advise that you go into solo queue right now and start spamming Syndra support if you're not incredibly experienced with Syndra. But certainly not going to be utterly terrible, and could really lend something to this bot lane, and is very interesting to see, something that I have actually never seen before. Though I have considered it myself, being a support main. I have considered a lot of champions for support, but I never really had the cockiness to try it out, especially since I am a terrible Syndra. I can just never land those stuns off of Scatter the Weak. I'm really bad at it. Speaking of Syndra, she gets hit by the active on explosive shot from the Tristana, as well as a snare from Morgana, taking a good amount of poke, being forced to use her first health pot there in that lane, but is also landing back a good amount of poke herself onto the Morgana. Those spammable Qs from the Syndra doing a good amount of work for her in this lane. She has bought herself a Spellthief's Edge fairly predictably. Most mages that transform into supports do go for that item, since it is often the best choice as far as a gold efficient item goes for a mage that decides to go down to the bot lane and help out their AD carry. And she's going to be proccing that passive over and over again as the Lee Sin shows up in mid lane looking to get some retribution for that early first blood that he accidentally gave up to the enemy team. Lands the Sonic Wave onto Orianna and gets some decent damage onto her, but not able to force any summoners or get the kill, just going to be giving some pressure to his friendly Zed in that mid lane. The mid lane matchup being a Zed versus Orianna, which I don't believe I mentioned earlier, as Tristana gets hit by the Scatter the Weak stun from Syndra, goes nearly down. Her friendly minion taking the Q from the Ezreal, though, that would have killed her. Very heroic minion there, dying so that the Tristana doesn't, stepping in the way of that shot, as the Morgana now gets stunned up by the Syndra, and the Ezreal Arcane shifts forward but misses yet another Q onto the Morgana, so she doesn't get poked down quite as far as she could, but she is 1v2 in this lane, her Tristana having left, being forced out by all that damage that was landed onto her earlier, as we see the Riven and the Yasuo trading up in top lane. Riven making very good use of her passive there, weaving in auto attacks after each proc of her Q, Broken Wings. Going to be getting that bonus damage passive off with every proc that it is available. She dashes forward with Valor, lands the stun, and the third proc with Broken Wings. Yasuo dashes through her, though, dashing under tower as she dies to the Yasuo's damage, and the Yasuo goes down, giving a kill over to the Riven after he gets the Riven himself. 1-for-1 up in the top lane. Neither side really coming out too far ahead from the other in that matchup, though I would say that Riven has the better early game there, with much more CC than a Yasuo can offer in that matchup, and probably in a 1v1 would certainly come out ahead, though the Yasuo is 10 CS up, and as such is able to complete a Zeal, whereas the Riven is only able to get a Longsword and another Doran's Blade. So she would have the advantage in health here, but the Yasuo is going to have the advantage in damage, Zeal giving him a very high crit chance, with Yasuo's passive doubling all crit chances that he gets, while reducing the damage on critical strikes by a fairly significant portion. It does mean that the Zeal is going to be giving him a lot more damage than it would be giving to many other champions in this game. The Syndra getting hit by a Morgana bind there, the Ez forced to pop his heals so that he saves his friendly support Syndra's life, and the Syndra now going to be backing behind the turret, behind the safety of that turret. As in the top lane, we see the Yasuo dashing in onto the Riven using Valor, though, to mitigate most of the damage that the Yasuo attempts to trade onto her, and simply walking away from that one there, safe and sound, with that shield being able to absorb most of the damage that the Yasuo tried to trade back in that trade. Yasuo does have a level advantage as well as a CS advantage, though, on the Riven in the top lane. One most likely causing the other, as he is going to be pushing back onto her as the Lee Sin shows up in bot lane, landing the Sonic Wave, but choosing not to follow up this time, not exhibiting any more signs of Lee Syndrome, as it's probably a good thing that he didn't, since Jarvan is now in the bot lane, in that lane brush there. The Syndra missing her stun as the Lee Sin comes in. No one on purple team realized that the Jarvan was in the bush, though the Lee Sin's going quite low. He gets exhausted, and then Jarvan gets the last hit on him there with the side of his spear. Then Jarvan stabbing forward with the tip of his spear is going to take out the Ezreal for the double kill. Things going very well for blue team in the bot lane, as well as in general in this game. They are 4-1 and up by a good 1,000 gold now at the 6.5 minute mark or so. Down in the bot lane, Jarvan's still here, trying to make something happen on the Syndra, but the Syndra's a little bit too scared being alone in a 1v3, I understand her fear, and does not allow the Jarvan to get close enough to make anything happen, as in the top lane, the Riven's just farming quite well under the tower, using the procs from her passive to get that extra bonus damage to the last hit between the tower's attacks, as the Zed ults onto the Orianna. The Orianna, though, exhausting the Zed, is going to be able to survive. The Deathmark flashes forward and uses Shockwave, but the Zed throws back a Shuriken just in time as the Shockwave goes, as the Shockwave pops, and the Shuriken manages to get the last bit of health that Orianna had remaining as she flashed forward onto the Zed, and Zed wins that duel there, getting a kill for himself in the mid lane, putting him at 1-0 and allowing him to pick up this Brutalizer. Actually, no, he had that during the fight. He's taking the Wraith down and throwing it back, and we get to see what he decides to pick up with all that gold that he has just garnered for himself, with the CS lead as well as a kill now, winning that duel in the mid lane and becoming 1-0 to the Orianna's 1-1. The Orianna, wisely looking to pick up a Seeker's Armguard here, has bought the 2 cloth armors, which are both components of that item, trying to get some armor into her build to mitigate a bunch of the damage from that Zed, who has decided to go with boots, a longsword, and some consumables after backing. The Jarvan trying to flag and drag forward onto the Ezreal is not going to quite land it, though. The Ezreal a little bit out of range, just barely away from that knock-up there. Is the Jarvan now going to come around again through the river, try this gank one more time. The Morgana, though, misses her binding, goes off wide to the left, predicted incorrectly where Ezreal was going to run, and the Jarvan no longer thinks that bot lane is going to be a viable place to gank, and he's probably correct. He's going to be walking up towards mid lane now, maybe just going to go to his Wraith camp and do that. As we swap up to the top lane, no, back to the bot lane, where Morgana is sweeping out a ward, though maybe we should swap up back to the top lane directed camera, and we go to the mid lane, where Orianna and Zed are trading it out. But in the top lane, as I was saying, the Lee Sin is waiting in the bush to gank. The Morgana, though, gets stunned by the Scatter the Weak from Syndra, but the spell shield onto the Tristana means that Syndra cannot peel her off, as Tristana just lands auto attack after auto attack onto the Syndra, and both sides on bot lane are brought quite low by the combined poke of the other team's efforts. In the mid lane, Orianna with a blue buff going to be spamming out command attack and dissonance to try and poke down the Zed as much as possible and avoid an unfavorable fight in the future. But Yasuo has roamed down from top lane, and Lee Sin is here flashing under the tower. Gonna get hit by the Dragon Strike from Jarvan, though. Perhaps he overestimated himself, as now we see the Yasuo going to be dashing in as well. The Zed getting the kill on Orianna. A lot of burst coming out from him as the Tristana down in the bot lane neatly sidesteps the ult from Ezreal and then trade some damage back onto him. That was a kill in the mid lane for both teams as Lee Sin tried a little bit of a overzealous tower dive, but at least Zed with the high damage ultimate able to come in and clean up the Orianna and make it at least a 1-for-1 trade. And now Zed in the mid lane going to take out that turret with the help of Yasuo, able to put a turret up on the map for themselves. That is 1-0 in terms of turrets, purple team being the 1 and blue team being the 0. That brings them back into the lead in terms of gold. They are now 200 up on gold, with the Zed doing quite well for himself, having nearly a 20 CS lead, as well as already having taken out the tower in the mid lane, which means he's certainly freed up to roam and try and get some kills on the rest of the map. He is a very mobile and high damage assassin, so his roam is going to be quite deadly as the Lee Sin is down here ganking in the bot lane. The spell shield can be put onto the Tristana, but I don't think it's going to save her. Actually, the Jarvan has shown up and the Syndra goes down, and that is a double kill for Tristana. She leaves under the tower now, but the tower aggro transfers to the Jarvan as she steps right away from it, and the Jarvan is on a rampage now. They dove the Ezreal successfully and got that kill here, as in the top lane, the Riven and the Yasuo are going to duel it out once again, but both of them being 1-1-1, neither one really being able to get a lead in this top lane, as Zed is going to ult to dodge the Orianna's Shockwave, and the Deathmark and Ignite, despite the exhaust, is going to take her out, as the Riven with ult up is going to be engaging onto the Yasuo. The Yasuo throwing out his Wind Wall, but not in the correct location, is not going to block the second proc of Riven's ulti. And Riven's going to win that duel, going 2-1 now in the top lane and getting some good damage onto this turret, though Zed is roaming up from the mid lane where he did just get a kill onto the Orianna. Very nice dodge with his ult there, dodging out that Orianna Shockwave, as the Riven might be in a bit of a pickle here, cornered by both the Zed and the Syndra coming around from the other side. The Zed going to swap to his Shadow to avoid the third proc of Broken Wings. Very nice Shadow work there, as the Zed does manage to finalize that kill onto the Riven with the help of the roaming support Syndra. Jarvan has found Lee Sin clearing out his pink ward now, but Jarvan not being able to get onto that Lee Sin, who's a very slippery monk, is going to simply have to deal with the fact that his pink ward is now gone, and he's going to have to slink back to his jungle with his tail between his legs, and his pink ward dead. Though the Orianna has found the enemy team's pink ward and is going to take revenge on theirs by clearing that out, and if she can't have a pink ward, no one can. And that bush is now clear of all wards and just has an Orianna ball floating in it, as the blue team is going to be going towards the dragon now. The Orianna using Command Protect to shield up the Jarvan from some of the dragon's auto attacks. Wants him to be healthy in case the purple team discovers them doing this, which they have. The Lee Sin has found 3 members of the blue team doing the dragon and has summoned help in the form of the Zed and the Syndra coming down from the mid, and the Ezreal on his way from bot. The Morgana pops her ulti on the 2 members of purple team, who both escape before the second proc of the ulti can go off, though, as the Zed gets the shutdown on the Jarvan. That's a lot more gold going over to the Zed, who was already doing fairly well for himself. The Zed now ulting in onto the Tristana and immediately swapping back to his ult clone, simply trying to buy some time for his team, who have shown up in force now. The Syndra taking the shutdown gold from the Tristana. That was 3 kills going over to purple team, 2 of them being shutdowns just for the dragon, which I believe that blue team got. And now we see Syndra stunning up the Morgana, who's trying to escape through the purple team jungle, but she is cornered now by the Ezreal and the Syndra. The Ezreal getting the kill there, as Yasuo is pushing up the mid lane onto this inner mid turret. Quite a swing in terms of purple team, who, despite being down still in kills, are certainly up in terms of global goals, and since multiple of those kills were shutdowns, probably still up in kill gold as well, and are going to be up in total gold by about 2,000. Riven taking this time where a lot of purple team are down at the bottom side of the map, going to be trying to go for this steal on the red buff. Pops her ulti as she gets kicked away by the Lee Sin. Going to be coming in with that active. The Lee Sin a little bit scared of the Riven, but now he has backup, is going to be chasing after her, and the Riven, realizing that purple team probably has time to summon reinforcements, is going to leave the jungle there, deciding that it's not worth the risk anymore to go after that red buff, and the Lee Sin is going to be able to get his buff uncontested at this point. The Riven going back to base, going to be healing up and going back to her top lane. She does have teleport, and it is up, so if her team gets into a major fight later on in the game, she will be able to teleport down into that, whereas the enemy top laner, the Yasuo, chose to bring Ignite, so later on in this match, the blue team is going to have the advantage in map maneuverability, at least, as down in the bot lane, Tristana is looking to get a tower on the map for her team, but Yasuo is here to defend it, and Zed is coming down from the mid lane. The Zed going to go swap his Shadow over onto the onto the Tristana and wait for her to rocket jump away before using his ult. He does get exhausted by the Morgana though, and so he doesn't have quite enough damage to finish off the Tristana, as Jarvan has shown up here now in the bot lane along with Orianna. The Syndra ult just barely not being able to finish off that support Morgana, who gets away with under 100 health, as up in the top lane, Riven has been pushing uncontested this whole time and has taken out the outer top lane turret for her team. But now Purple Team is able to take out the outer bot lane turret for their side, and so that is still a 1 turret advantage for Purple Team, but now it's 2-1 rather than 1-0. As down in the bot lane, Purple Team is deciding to keep pushing on. The Ezreal taking some good harass there from the Orianna, who does have a Elixir of Brilliance running, as well as the completed Seeker's Armguard and some Sorc Shoes, so is going to be doing some decent damage, having a damage spike from that Elixir which she bought. As the Riven is sitting in the bush now, waiting until Purple Team leaves before trying to push up this lane some more. Maybe doesn't realize that she's sitting in a ward though, but though I do think she saw the Zed place it. As Yasuo and Zed are now coming towards her, the Yasuo having that red buff is certainly going to be a threat if he can get onto her, but she does have a lot of mobility being Riven, and is able to dissuade them from chasing her by simply leaping away with all 3 procs of that Broken Wings on her Q. Down in the bot lane, the Tristana is caught out a little bit by the Lee Sin and the Ezreal. The Lee Sin having that red buff is going to be very hard for her to escape from. She uses the ult on the Lee Sin, but Lee Sin had already landed a Sonic Wave and comes flying back in with the second proc of it. Uses a ward jump to keep chasing after her after she flashes, and manages to get the kill with his ult, doing a big burst of damage there when she's low before she can try to any more fancy maneuvers to try and escape. The Riven, though, going to be flashing forward with the ult, immediately canceling the animation after that dash, and getting the kill very quickly on Yasuo in the top lane, as we swap back down to the bottom side jungle of Blue Team, where Zed and Lee Sin had found a Morgana and had eaten her for breakfast, taking her out very quickly, giving another kill over to, I believe, the Lee Sin, who is now at 2-5, and the Zed, who is now at 5-0-2, is doing quite well for himself, really helping out Purple Team a lot in this game. The Riven a bit cornered here in the top lane. She's been trying to push to take out this turret, maybe going to be able to escape. She is Riven, does have lots of mobility, but she gets stunned by Scatter the Weak and then ulted by the Syndra, gets hit by the first and second procs of Sonic Wave from the Lee Sin there, and nearly manages to take the Lee Sin out, doing quite a burst of damage before going down. She does have that Ravenous Hydra completed and does have a bit of damage herself, but not enough damage to take him out because it is a 3-on-1, and even Riven has a bit of trouble in a 3-on-1, especially if she's not hyper carrying. She's certainly not doing poorly or anything in this matchup, but she's 3-3, and that's not a hyper carry set of numbers in her score there, so she's not going to be able to 3-1 at this point. But she did manage to get a good amount of the damage onto that turret, as well as spending a lot of Purple Team's resources up there to try and kill her. Does mean that Blue Team is able to get some more damage onto the mid lane turret here. Blue Team looking for those map advantages wherever they can manage to pick them up. As it is now 2-on-2 in terms of turrets, both teams having an outer turret taken, having 2 outer turrets taken rather, Blue Team having 1 in the top end bot, and Purple Team having 1 in the mid end bot. Dragon most likely is going to be coming up soon. Actually, there's a timer in the top left, and I can tell you actually exactly when it's going to be coming up, and that is 38 seconds, 37 seconds from now. You get the point. Dragon's going to be up quite soon, and Purple Team looks like they're vying for position here to be able to take this dragon. Riven, though, is back in the top lane, going to be split pushing. The Purple Team spends a lot of their resources down here trying to go for this dragon. The Riven might be able to get that top turret, which she already put some damage onto, and is at right now with a minion wave. She's going to get it already, actually. She had it low enough that just 1 minion wave worth of minions was enough for her to take it out, and she does have that Ravenous Hydra, so she's able to split push very effectively, realizing that split push is probably going to be the best strategy in this fairly even game right now. Did buy that Ravenous Hydra first so that she could do it more effectively. Kudos to her for having good item choice. As we see the Purple Team, though, still going for this dragon here. They have it warded, but they don't, well, they probably realize that Blue Team also has it warded, but they don't have enough sweepers on their team, only 2, and one of them on cooldown currently, to sweep out all of these wards that Blue Team has around the dragon. The Blue Team now in better position to go for this dragon than the Purple Team is. The Purple Team trying to close in around them. The Orianna Ball kind of zoning them out, though. They don't want to group up around that for a good shockwave opportunity. The Jarvan getting stunned up as he flag and drags in, and then Cataclysms onto the Zed. The Zed immediately swapping out of it, though. Gonna be engaged on by the Riven, who doesn't manage to get onto the Ezreal, who arcane shifts over the wall, gets sped up by the Orianna, has her ult running right now, but doesn't have anyone to use it on, as all of Purple Team is incredibly mobile, aside perhaps from the Syndra, but nearly all of Purple Team's incredibly mobile and can escape that Riven who teleported down, but the Jarvan going to take out the Lee Sin, who fell victim to Lee Syndrome once more, going in with his Sonic Wave onto 5 members of the blue team. Does bring the Morgana quite low, but does not manage to finalize the kill before he gets CC'd until death, going down there, as well as his friendly Zed, who tried to follow up to help him out and take out some of those kills perhaps. They brought 3 members of blue team quite low. The Ezreal going to be able to get a kill here onto the Morgana. Arcane shifting in, though Jarvan did manage to secure the Dragon, and that is a Dragon for 1 kill so far, which is certainly worth it, as well as those 2 kills earlier that they got. The Jarvan now going to be flag and dragging over the wall and using Aegis to slow down the Ezreal, going to take him out as well, as the Tristana rocket jumps onto the Syndra for that slow, gets exhausted by the Syndra, but Riven is here too, going to stun the Syndra under the tower with Key Strike, gets knocked back by Scatter the Weak, but it's too little too late, as the Syndra goes down to 1 more final auto attack from the Tristana. Lee Sin here at his blue buff does not want it to be stolen, but the Riven has double buffs as well as a lot of damage. Might be able to turn around and fight this one. Gets kicked away by the ultimate from Lee Sin, and then both teams decide to give up. Actually, no, Zed and Lee Sin, making me a liar, going to be chasing after this Tristana a little bit more, though they do decide to peel off in the end, and both teams disengage. Blue team certainly coming out ahead in that one, getting more kills as well as the Dragon, but they are still only about 1,000 gold in the lead here. Zed trying to shadow swap over the wall, but throwing it into the wall instead of over, as the Jarvan, the Morgana, binds the Lee Sin in the jungle there, and then the Jarvan takes the opportunity of a CC'd Lee Sin to flag and drag over him and CC him even longer, and he goes down without even a chance there of any sort of repercussions. That is another free kill given over to blue team, who's going to certainly be happy to make use of that money. In the mid lane, blue team is going to be pushing out. It seems like we had a little bit of a lull in the action, thankfully. My throat's getting a little bit hoarse already, as the Yasuo is going to be stealing blue team's blue buff. Not really much good that Yasuo can make out of blue buff, since his Q is reduced, the cooldown on his Q is reduced by attack speed, and his his E already has a tiny cooldown, basically a non-existent one. And his ult has a terribly short cooldown as well, and his Wind Wall, I suppose, would be quite nice to have some cooldown reduction on that, but that's really only 1 ability, so it's not that great on him. But the point is, it's not on anyone on blue team, so it's certainly worth picking up, even if it's picked up on someone who can't make all that much use of it, simply to deny it from the enemy team. Jarvan attempting to flag and drag onto the Syndra there, but the Syndra able to sidestep it, as the Lee Sin lands a Sonic Wave and then does a wonderful little insect there, going in on the Sonic Wave onto the Tristana, flashing past her immediately and kicking her back into the team, where she goes down. The Ezreal getting the last hit there, as this seems to be a fight with some great momentum for Purple Team, who've taken 2 kills now. The Jarvan and the Tristana both going down. The Riven might get caught out here. The Ezreal does have a red buff. If he can land 1 Q, it's going to slow her down, but no. She manages to Broken Wings away from the Q that would have slowed her and possibly spelled her doom, though she flashes in with the ult running onto 3 members of Purple Team who were foolishly trying to start Baron with a full health double buff. Riven nearby, she gets a double kill all by herself, now is on the Syndra here, going to be doing a bunch of damage to her, gets the triple kill before going down to the Yasuo, but that's certainly worth it. A 1 for 3 right there, as the Morgana now being chased by the Yasuo, going to try and sidestep around to dodge out his Q. Does take about half of her health, but manages to escape, as the Purple Team's plan to take Baron was wonderfully foiled there by the blue team, Riven. Again, a bit of a lull in the action, as blue team's just taking the man advantage on the map to push up the mid lane, probably going to be going for this outer mid turret, the only outer turret on the map still standing for Purple Team. Going to be giving them another turret in this global objective game. They certainly need it, since they are behind in the global objectives, and that is really the only thing keeping Purple Team in this game, who are only about 100 gold behind. This has been a very even game all throughout. Very good, very interesting to watch. I'm really enjoying it, and I hope you are too. As we see blue team just clearing out their jungle, has some good pink wards all around the map. Actually only 1, I lie, but they do have a good pink ward in their own jungle there. It's nice to put those pink wards in your own jungle, because they're less likely to be discovered by the Purple Team, though it looks like Purple Team's going to be discovering them anyway, as the Syndra drops a ward into the bush where the pink ward was hiding, and is going to be auto-attacking that to try and take it out. The Trish is here, they're going to take out her ward in return, so it's a ward for a ward in the ward deathmatch right there. As Riven has returned to the top lane, going to be split pushing that again. Her teleport is back up quite soon, only probably, I'm guessing, looking at the cooldown there, about 10 seconds until that is up. As the Morgana gets jumped on by the Zed, does manage to avoid the slow by dropping a spell shield on himself, but she has Ignite and Death Mark both about to proc, and the Death Mark popping does kill her in the end, but Lee Sin going a bit too ham perhaps under this tower, spells death for himself and nearly for Yasuo, both of whom get hit by the shockwave from the Orianna under the tower. The Yasuo only surviving because of his friendly Ezreal popping the heal at a strategic time to be able to keep him alive and keep him from dying to that burst from the Orianna under the tower. The Yasuo, though, getting caught basing in a perhaps poor choice of position to base at, does go down to the Orianna, but the Zed jumps in onto the Jarvan now, taking him out. He was fairly low in health, but the Orianna is the last, not the last man standing. Riven is still alive, pushing up the top lane, is the last man standing from this little brawl, though, down in the bottom side of the map, is going to be chasing onto the Syndra. It's been a long chase. She pops the W for that speed buff, lands a few more auto attacks onto the Syndra. She does have a red buff. Another auto attack would have killed her, but she doesn't want to dive that far under tower. Does not manage to finalize the kill, and I believe that was simply 2 kills for 2 kills. 2 kills going over to each of the 2 teams down there in that little brawl on the bottom half of the map. Riven, meanwhile, has been split pushing this top lane this whole time, has a wonderful creep score for herself, 193, nearly 200 at 25 minutes here, as she gets discovered by the Lee Sin in the enemy jungle. The Lee Sin going to be doing a good amount of damage to her, bringing her down to just about half health, as she manages to sidestep the Ezreal's Q and surprise him out of the bush, doing a ton of damage to him, taking him out. The Valor Shield nearly allowing her to sustain through the fight, the subsequent fight with the Yasuo and the Lee Sin, but not quite enough, as she does get into the Yasuo in the end there, but getting a kill for herself. It's a 1-for-1 situation. Meanwhile, her team down on the other side of the map is going to be taking this dragon, so it's 1 kill for 1 kill, and then a dragon for blue team, which is certainly a trade I would take if I were on blue team, and probably a trade they are happy to take as well. The Morgana getting stunned there by the enemy Syndra is going to try and land a binding on her, but the binding does not hit. The Syndra managing to sidestep that one fairly neatly, as blue team's just going to be getting some wards under this Baron here. Don't want to have purple team sneaking that out from under their noses. And the Lee Sin going to be clearing his jungle back to yet another bit of a lull in the action. Seems like teams every few minutes want to just have a bit of time to themselves to clear that jungle and get some more gold in their pockets before trying to re-engage once more with some new items and some new levels. There's a ward, yep, Orianna sees it. There was a ward under the Nexus turret for purple team, probably there when Lee Sin ward jumped in his little diving misadventure earlier on. And she does see it. It only had 1 hit left on it, so that's a free 30 gold for the Orianna there, who's certainly going to be not unhappy about that. I mean, I guess that's worth 1 auto attack's worth of your time, certainly, as the Morgana going to be sweeping out another ward near the Baron pit for purple team. Blue team going to be positioning around this Baron, sort of, but one member of their team, I don't get to see who in the map, is pinging to be careful, and they don't really want to start this off right yet, not with all 5 members of purple team up and the Riven back at base, though the Riven does have her teleport up at this point and would be able to teleport in if a fight were to start, but you need something to teleport onto, so they'd have to start the fight near one of their wards or drop one at the beginning of the fight if blue team can be coordinated enough to do that. This is a solo queue match, so I'm not entirely sure what level of coordination we can really expect from either team, but that's certainly a possibility. They could always drop a ward down to allow the Riven to join any fight which they may find themselves engaged in, as the Lee Sin gets hit by a max range Morgana binding there and is forced to flash over the wall into the red buff camp, as Riven is engaging onto the very, very immobile Syndra, dashes forward and cancels the animation on Keystrike, I think that's the name of her W there, to get the instant stun, as the Zed manages to take out the Morgana, who's a bit too deep in his jungle, but he's quite low now. Going to swap away with the Shadow, though, does not go down, as blue team is chasing off the remaining members of purple team. The Yasuo going down under his tower, the tower not providing enough protection to save him from the Riven, who is blood hungry and chasing after him. The Riven going to be tanking up that tower with the repeated uses of Valor, her E-dashing shield, as the Jarvan's in a bit of trouble here, though he does manage to flag and drag over the wall and dodge out the last Sonic Q, the last Sonic wave, the Q for Lee Sin that gets tossed after him, so he manages to survive, and blue team gets another turret on the map for themselves, putting them even on turrets at 5 and 5. The Lee Sin going down to the explosive shot dot from Tristana. The Tristana then leaping away after taking out the Lee Sin, after taking out the Zed, who tries to jump onto her, and the Riven now getting a double kill under the tower. I didn't even see the Ezreal go down. There was a ton of burst all going on all at once right there. Getting a double kill, though, onto the Ezreal and the Syndra. This Riven doing a lot of work for her team at 12 and 5 now. Has bought a Ravenous Hydra, looks like she's going for a Last Whisper here, as well as the Brutalizer and a Randuin's. The Randuin's to survive the heavy AD focus that Purple Team has. The only source of AP on their team really being this Syndra, who is being a support, does not have all that much damage right now, really only a Leandries for damage. So Purple Team really is very heavy into AD, which might work against them the later this game goes, since Blue Team really only needs to stack up one kind of resistance to be able to mitigate a lot of their damage. Yasuo landing his knockup onto the Jarvan, going in on the ult there off of that knockup proc. Does not realize, though, perhaps, how tanky the Jarvan is. He does, in fact, have a Randuin's and a Sunfire already. That is a lot of armor. As the Zed flashes forward and then swaps to his W Shadow Clone, going to be ulting onto the Jarvan as the Jarvan flag and drags away. The ult from Zed, though, popping does not do enough damage. The Jarvan still having at least a good 800 health there. Gets hit up by the Zed using his E on him, but the Zed then goes down to the Riven, who turns and burns with that ult, as well as the Baron buff on her, going to be doing a lot of damage there, taking the Zed out very quickly as the Jarvan Cataclysms onto the Lee Sin, who goes down to the combined damage of Tristana and Riven after the Cataclysm. The Syndra going to be ulting onto the Tristana, trying to take her out, but does not have much AP, as I mentioned before. Not enough damage to take out that Tristana. But Ezreal, at least having repeated slows, is able to kite out the Riven and get back under the safety of his tower. Blue Team being forced to give up. I say again, not being forced to give up actually on this chase. But then Yasuo shows up and does deter the Tristana from trying to fountain dive and trying to tower dive any further than she already has. But it really looks like Purple Team has gotten the short end of the stick here in this trade. In just a few short team fights and one Baron buff later, Blue Team is pushing in onto their mid lane. Yasuo goes down to a Dissonance and then a Shockwave. Not exactly the direction the combo usually goes, but certainly effective enough to give Orianna a double kill as Zed tries to jump into multiple members of Blue Team, and Orianna gets 2 kills for herself in that little brawl. Blue Team still being relentless now, pushing up the mid lane. Orianna walking forward towards the Syndra, who doesn't have any mobility to try and save herself, is going to use her ulti as the Jarvan flag and drags in, gets knocked back in the middle of the flag and drag though, and is not able to continue to follow up onto that Syndra, who's low on health. The Lee Sin using Sonic Wave and then Safeguard to get behind the Orianna and kick her back. The Orianna, though, going into Zhonya's is going to survive. Getting the spell shield as well as her own shield does not go down. Not a member of Blue Team has fallen in quite a while in any of these repeated brawls. Blue Team going to be on the Nexus turrets now. Tristana leaping in towards them to try and get there as quickly as she can to help them take out those turrets. This might be a victory for Blue Team. Just after repeated teamfight after teamfight in which they just won over and over again, with Purple Team filtering in one person at a time, never really giving them a proper teamfight, and Blue Team always having more members around to deal with the enemy team than Purple Team did. The Baron buff regen, of course, between all of these fights, really helping them out. The Riven now at full health, despite multiple engagements in a row. They do have one inhibitor down, they're going for the second, and they also have a Nexus turret down, as Riven is fending off the Syndra and the Lee Sin solo under that remaining Nexus turret. She has 5 levels on this Lee Sin, and she jumps in on him with the ult running, the exhaust not being enough to mitigate enough of that damage. She does take him out. The Syndra tries to ult as a last-ditch effort onto the Riven, but only brings her to half health, as the Riven now going to clear out all of these minions so that all of her minions are focusing onto the Nexus, with the ult still running. Actually, the ult just ran out, but she is on this Nexus now, doing a lot of damage, dashes away from the Scatter of the Weak, avoids most of the damage from the Zed, but is being focused now by 4 members of the enemy team now. But there are super minions. There are super minions, and if Purple Team does not deal with them, they will lose the game here. The super minions attack the Nexus one more time, but then turned onto the Ezreal. They manage to fend off the wave for a little bit longer. Can they claw their way back into this match? This is a very exciting game so far. The Tristana going to be leaping over the wall here, helping out her Jarvan, taking out that dragon. Actually does not even need to leap over the wall. Being level 17 has quite a long range now. And looks like Blue Team is going to be getting a dragon. After stacking up all those advantages, why not take another? They're now nearly 20,000 gold in the lead from just 5 to 8 minutes ago. They were probably only like 3,000 or 4,000 in the lead, as the Zed going a little bit hero here on the enemy team, going to be ulting in, perhaps out of frustration, just trying to get something back for his team, but he goes down and the Syndra follows shortly after. That's 4 members of Blue Team pushing up the mid lane now. This looks like it might spell the end for Purple Team. They do have a super minion who's at less than half health with them, but they don't even really need that. No towers left to defend this Nexus, which is at half health. The Jarvan flag being teleported onto by the Riven, but she doesn't really need to be there, as her team wins the game for her. Good game. Thanks for watching. See you tomorrow. thanks a lot for watching. If you'd like your replay featured on this channel, check the description. You can figure out how to do that by reading down there. Many thanks to Wasili in this video, though his name usually is Yace is Coming, and he does have a YouTube channel of his own that you should go check out. Lots of very high-level informational videos there on Riven. So if you like the top lane, and especially if you like Riven, you should give it a look. He's quite good at what he does. Anyways, thanks for watching. Have a good one. See you tomorrow.